In this video, I'm going to show you how we installed our sPOD digital switch panel and how we are using it to power our HiLites Pro6 light bar. We're not going to be using the HiLite harnesses that they supply with the kit. Instead, we're going to be using the sPOD system to power these things up. Not only that, we're going to be using them to power a bunch of roof rack lighting in a later video. I hope you guys check that out. Now, the cool part about this thing is it has a touchscreen interface in the vehicle. You put this under the hood and you can connect all of your lighting, your air compressor, your fridge, whatever you're running in your Toyota 4Runner to this thing. No more running 30 wires into the vehicle. So the first step in installing this sPOD is actually taking your fuse box lid off, and we're going to drill 4 holes in it to mount the sPOD to. Reach in here, pull these little tabs off, and the fuse box just pops right out. Now, take this little diagram here that they supply you with, and you'll discover it fits perfectly. Try to center it up so that it's, you know, not skewed, crazy, crooked, or anything like that. And you're going to see that they marked the 4 holes here for you, right here. I'm just going to mark the center of these so I know where to drill. With the 4 holes marked, you can go ahead and take a 3/16 drill bit and drill them out. Now, you can take your sPOD and mount it to this thing. As you can see on the back here, we've got 4 studs, and in each of those studs is a Phillips screw with a washer. Go ahead and pop those out right now. Now, today we're demoing the sPOD, and what we'll be wiring to it is the HiLites Pro6 in the bumper here. We mounted those with Rago fabrication brackets. You can find those brackets on our website. Those are a really slick install. We've got a video dedicated to it. We'll post a link for you guys if you want to check it out. I would say it's the best looking light option for the bumper of these 4Runners, and trust me, we've seen a lot of them. And so we're going to be taking that, instead of using the harness that HiLites supplied with the lights, we're going to be hooking them up straight to the sPOD here. This thing is one of the cleanest ways to do your light wiring, any aftermarket accessory. If you've got a sweet ARB fridge, if you've got a air compressor, if you've got roof lights, emergency lights, strobe lights, whatever, this thing is what you want. Take these 4 studs, line them up with your fuse box like so, and put those screws right back in. Go ahead and go through and just give them one little final snug here, because we won't need to get back into this fuse box. As you can see, the 4 screws are in, the spacers are properly aligned, and the sPOD's on top. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I love it. I've always wanted to install one of these. I'm really happy to be bringing this to you guys today. Now go ahead and pop your fuse cover back on. All right, we got our battery connections here. Look at that. Unbelievable. Looks factory. Now we can take our cover off here and expose the internals. This is the harness for the HiLites lights on the front that I mentioned earlier. And all you need is power and ground. You do not need to use any relay harnesses from any light bar you're running, anything like that. This thing can just power stuff up to 30 amps. That's outstanding. Take your wires, push them up through this grommet, pull them through. As you can see, I have a little bit of slack. I'd prefer some slack rather than not enough. You'll see that these are labeled here, and these are your outputs. You've got switch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, repeating, and then you've got your ground for each one. Power and ground coming from those lights. It's really as straightforward as that. What we need to do is cut these to length and use the provided crimp terminals to secure them to the sPOD system. Bear this wire back a little bit, and we're going to crimp that on just like that. I apologize if my hands get in the way a little bit. I'll try to show you as best I can what I've got going on here. I twist the wires, the bare wires, around a little bit. It just makes getting them into that connector a little bit easier. So I'm going to loosen the screws for switch 1 and its corresponding ground. They're just Phillips screws, nothing to it. You don't need to take them completely out. You should be able to slide the terminal right in there. Positive lead goes to the switch 1 part, just like that. Tighten it down. You don't need to go too crazy. The last thing you want to do is break something off in here. This whole thing is really sturdy. I really love the way it's constructed. It seems like you couldn't really mess it up, but we don't need to be cranking on these things either. Snug is fine. Look at that. It does not get any cleaner than that. You cannot get a relay harness for a light bar setup looking cleaner than this thing. At this point, take your control cable, remove one of the black covers, and insert the cable through this little grommet on the bottom. Now in the instructions it says you can plug this into either one of these. I just chose the one closest to the hole there. And tuck your wiring down. Now we can put our cover back on. We shouldn't need to come back in here for anything. Just to recap what we've done so far, we've connected our KC HiLites bumper lights to the sPOD. We've connected our control cable to the sPOD, and we've mounted the sPOD onto the fuse box lid. Now, one step before we move into the interior of the vehicle is to connect the power and ground from the sPOD to the battery. It's right here conveniently on this Toyota 4Runner. You don't have far to go. This is a 13mm socket. Remove the nut. Put your negative lead on the battery terminal. Pop this positive cover off. You got another 13mm nut here. Now it's up to you how you want to route these. I'm going to try to route them in such a way that I could still remove the battery pretty easily if I ever wanted to. On this vehicle, we really don't have to remove the battery that often, but you know, over the course of the vehicle's life, it's always better if you don't have a spider web of things going across the battery, keeping you from yanking it out. Tighten that up. And you shouldn't have a problem putting the cover back on if you route it just like that. We can come back through and zip tie these up later once we're sure everything works just fine. At this point, take your control cable and we're going to pass this end through this rubber grommet here that the engine harness is going through into the firewall. I've notched this grommet right here with a razor blade. Be careful doing that. You just need a little slit to pass this wiring through. Now, you can go into the interior, grab onto it, and just pull the slack through. So, we've got our wiring ran into the vehicle. We've got our little cable here. This is going to end up going to the back of the sPOD. You don't want to do that yet, though. One thing to note about the sPOD is it's got a ram mount ball socket on the back. The best part about that is there are millions, I swear, millions of mount options for this thing. You can do a windshield mount, you can do a socket mount that you can drill into your dash anywhere you want. You could put this thing down in your center console. Literally anywhere in the vehicle you can mount this thing. You've got plenty of slack to do it with. I think we're left with almost 6 feet of extra cable here. We're gonna end up putting this on the windshield for this vehicle. So I'm gonna take this cable that we ran through and I'm gonna pull this weather stripping back and I'm gonna be running it through this channel here, up and across this to get it to the windshield. The cool part about this Toyota is it's so open back there that you can just reach back and take care of whatever you're doing. Pass it through like this. There's plenty of slack here so you can see kind of where I'm going. Now you might need a pry tool to kind of tuck this wiring back so it's not visually obvious that you've stuffed a bunch of wiring back here. You could also go into the headliner with it a little bit. This is the finished product. This did not come with the sPOD, by the way. They expect you to take care of the mounting solution on your own. Not a big deal. Like I said, millions of options for these things. I think what I'm going to do is do something like this. And you know, in the future I think I might even go with a shorter ram mount. As you can see, this is kind of jutting into my vision, but for the sake of this video, I'm just showing you guys how this thing works and how it installs. It's going to get the point across. You can plug your cable into the back. Plugs in just like the one under the hood plugged in. There's nothing to it. It's like a phone cable. Now it's up to you how you want to pretty it up. I'm going to pull this slack down. Kind of working backwards here. You got to start somewhere when it comes to projects like this, and more often than not, you're going to find yourself working backwards a little bit. It's not a big deal. And that doesn't look bad. Now, like I said, I'll probably go to a shorter ram mount. This one I think is the 2-inch, the 2-inch adapter. I think the 1-inch is going to be fine. It's going to be in my vision, which is what I wanted. I wanted to be able to just reach up while I'm driving, hit the buttons. We're going to have some roof rack lighting and the bumper lighting that I showed you. So this is it. That's all you got to do the sPOD install. Go ahead and zip tie any wiring up, tuck anything where you want it. We've got a lot of slack down here. I'm just going to reach up and zip tie that to some factory wiring. But that's about it. Let's see how it works.